This new piece is inspired by Numbers 24:17, which references somebody going to a trance essentially in the section before, and then saying, "There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter should rise out of Israel." And I was interested for several reasons. One, because in the section before 6:24:16, it referenced falling into a trance but having his eyes open. It's essentially something like channeling. And I find it interesting that this has been put into the section of like woo-woo, new age stuff, when it was something that was kind of taken for granted or assumed to be a connection with the divine for a long time, in a shamanic sense. But also this connection with an idea of a star rising, because we're all familiar with this idea of the three wise men following the star to find baby Jesus. But were they following a star, or were they following Ishtar or Ashtoreth? It's some sort of reference to that. Anyway, because of the paper I've used, there's holes on the side, hole punched on the side. The image isn't quite centered, so it's unfortunate that the right hand of it, like the whole wing, essentially isn't there. But you can still get the general idea. It actually reminds me a little bit of Isis type imagery with the wings of a bird. And within the wings, there are like this sort of like silvery beings there. I can't quite make it what they actually are, but you can definitely see that there's some beings. There's a sort of tall female-ish figure with a hood up, and then to the left of that, somebody with like a shawl wrapped around them. There's somebody a bit purple there as well, sort of almost emerging out of the wing. Then this sort of this central semicircle with like a crescent moon, I guess, on top. Within this sort of semicircle, there's what looks like birds looking down into the centre, which is a void, but it may perhaps a person emerging, but it doesn't look like a human. Two little birds off to the bottom left, just looking on. In what looks a bit like a knot that rises up from the bottom, like the centre of that, so I guess it could even be the spine. There are snakes either side, so this Kundalini type reference. As I'm looking at this morning, it looks a bit like the thread symbol in hieroglyphs, which is hate, H-A-Y-T, I think translated as. Also relates to like a wick of a candle. And there's some other symbols off to the right-hand side. It looks a bit like an arrow head person, an arrow pointing up and then an arrow pointing into the middle, and then just some general like feathery type things. And then top right is what looks like a bunch of people again. That's all the tops of the head at the top of the wing. It's a nice piece of art regardless of what it means, but I do definitely see a connection with the feminine here. May or may not relate to that star. Thanks for listening, and please like and subscribe.